And we have Sylvia Maixner with us today, who's going to start off the presentation, and then potentially Brad Harper will be joining us as well. But without further ado, Sylvia, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
All right, thanks so much, everyone. My name is Sylvia Maixner. I am the Senior Prevention Analyst for the Integrated Primary Prevention Workforce with the Indiana National Guard. I work with the military, which is why my title is so very long. We love acronyms. So I'd like to thank everyone for taking their time to listen in on this presentation. My co-presenter, Brad Harper, is with the Indiana Department of Veteran Affairs. We, with the Indiana National Guard and their team with the Indiana Department of Veteran Affairs, work really closely together because our populations are so connected. Yet we are different, which is why we usually try to attend these things together to discuss the two different groups. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be discussing identifying and understanding the military-connected population through our program, Ask the Question. All right, so a little bit about me and my group. So we are the Integrated Primary Prevention Workforce, again, within the Indiana National Guard. We are relatively new in that for government work, we have only existed for about 3 years. Our role within the Indiana National Guard, we do not work directly with service members. We support the folks that do. If you're familiar with the way that the Guard works, support can look like our soldier and family readiness specialists, our behavioral health officers, our sexual assault and response teams, folks like that who do that really important work of directly assisting with our service members. So IPPW, as we're known as, is here to stop any sort of negative behavior before they even begin through prevention. What this looks like is, again, working with those direct support services, creating programming, enlisting leadership support for culture change, and my role and kind of my real passion in this work is our community engagement portion of things. That can look like connecting our service members to community organizations. That can be popping in and seeing what strategies that the National Guard can assist with or be a part of out in the community, or any number of things like that. So we are driven by the public health approach. We are very, very data-driven, evidence-based, all of those things that have been proven to make a positive impact as far as prevention work goes. Do you know if Brad is on the line now?
He is not yet.
Okay, well, no worries. I am more than comfortable then to give this slide. This is the Community Challenge, which was formerly known as the Governor's Challenge. And this is a major project for the Indiana Department of Veteran Affairs. It is the Community Challenge to prevent suicide among service members, veterans, their families, and caregivers, or as the population is known as SMVF. This is a statewide multi-organizational effort that's been going on for many years now. And the approach kind of takes on these 3 pillars that you see listed here in terms of suicide prevention. So the first one, and really what our topic of conversation is about today, is our SMVF identification and screening. So how do we help organizations who are out there in the community who don't know if they work with the military connected population, help them to identify those who are there, and then what to do to best support those folks who do say yes. Pillar 2 is promoting connectedness. So this can look like connecting organizations together, so kind of on a higher level, or when we're looking at our SMVF population, how do we create opportunities for them to connect not only with each other, but also with the community? A great example here is that we have a parks working group. And what this is bringing in our parks departments, our recreation departments, and assisting them on marketing their programming and their events to our populations. Um, and to maybe create groups, things like that, that folks can get out there and meet other folks, and that is a major pillar of prevention. Another example, and this is super recent. So I'm based out of Greenwood, which is super close to Indianapolis. We just had Gen Con, which is the largest nerd gaming convention in the nation. We had about 73,000 people descend upon the city to do role-playing games similar to like Dungeons and Dragons, that sort of thing, board gaming, and we had a major presence there engaging with the SMVF population to have them connect and hopefully create friendships and relationships that can last beyond just those 4 days. Yeah, so that's a great example of that. And then pillar three is lethal means reduction. One thing we definitely stress, especially when working with the military connected population, is we're not trying to take away guns. And I'm sure that you folks working with the rural population there are also, you know a lot about the connection with firearms. Um, so we don't want to take them away. We want to just ensure that safety is a major component of it. So, yep, that's the community challenge kind of in a nutshell. It's a lot of different things happening in a lot of different places. So chances are we're doing something that your organization could connect to as well. All right, so let's get into the meat and the potatoes of this presentation, which is ask the question. So this is the question that we ask organizations to ask. Have you or a direct family member ever served in the military? This is very intentional questioning. A question that will often be used for military identification is simply, are you a veteran? And although that is a good start, Are You a Veteran does not capture everyone within the military connected population. So some examples of people who would say no to that, who would say yes to this particular question. So I work with the National Guard. Not everyone who is currently serving, currently wearing the uniform within the National Guard is a federally recognized veteran. In order to get that status, they need to have 180 continuous days of active duty service through deployment. And not everybody has that. So even though they are wearing their uniform and they're going in once a month to serve as part of the military, they are not a veteran. They will say no to that question. You will miss those who feel like their service wasn't enough to qualify themselves for a veteran, even if they did. So they'll say no. A lot of times women veteran will say no to the question just because of cultural issues that might exist. Family members will say no. That's my military connection, actually. I am what is known as a military brat. I was born into an Air Force family, and my dad didn't retire until I graduated high school. So even though my life was heavily impacted by the military, I would still say no to the Are You a Veteran because I myself never served. So that is why we put this question forth. The direct family member is also important, just so when we're connecting folks to resources, somebody whose husband or wife served will have access to a lot more resources than somebody's whose great-great-grandfather served in the military in, many, many years ago. So there we go for ask the question. Why we should ask this question. So this is a really great example up here, but I'm going to give you guys a personal example, and that is with my dad. I mentioned I'm a military brat. So my dad has been retired for many years now, and he was experiencing migraines. And he was seeing his primary care physician who was not with the VA. They could not figure out what was causing his migraines. He tried a bunch of different things and nothing really helped. It took his sixth visit to his primary care physician for someone to ask him about his job previous to the one he's at right now. And that's where the military showed up. That's where the Air Force came in. And then the question of tinnitus came up because he worked around planes. So once he started getting the tinnitus treated, that was the thing that helped his migraines. So that was 6 different visits that that question could have been asked, and he could have had relief much, much earlier. And that's why we ask. All right, so I'm going to move forward. I've been throwing around the acronym SMVF. That stands for Service Members, Veterans, and Families, SMVF. And that captures everyone that you see listed here. So active duty, the reserve component, which includes the National Guard. As a note, here in Indiana, we're a Guard state. We do not really have an active duty base outside of Crane Naval Base, which means that those who are currently serving do not have access to the same resources that other states who do have those active duty bases. In turn, that means these types of conversations and these kinds of potential relationships we can build with the community and the resources and support that you guys offer is even more important because that is where our service members are going. They are going to the community to get that support. SMVF obviously covers veterans, dependents such as myself or my mother, who was a military wife, caregivers. This is a group of individuals who are taking care of someone who has served and who might have disabilities related to service. Caregivers are often invisible in terms of this because they might not have been dependents, but they definitely do have resources available to them and are deeply impacted by the choice of military service. And of course, we have our families and friends. So I have talked a lot about ask the question in terms of who are we trying to identify and why you should do it. Something that I will hear in these presentations that I give is, well, I don't think we even have that many service members or veterans that live in our area. To that, I point to our data sources. So we've got several of them. I'm going to kind of run pretty quickly through a bunch of them, but I am not going to run super quickly through these guys. And this is Measuring Communities. This is actually my go-to for data. They are wonderful. It's run by the Military Family Research Institute, or MFRI, out of Purdue University. We're really lucky to have them here in Indiana because we get a lot of support. This is where you're going to go to get demographic data. They are going to have information on these 10 domains that you see here. And when you go to their website, you can actually break these down even more. So for demographics, you can have it broken down by veteran population. You can have it broken down by reserve population, dependents, that sort of thing. I'll show you examples of those. But this is a really great place to get those data sources. And if you're an organization that applies for grants, or needs to have some data to back up new initiatives or programming, this is the place that I would go to. And next screen will show you why. It's because they make beautiful graphics. I am not a graphics person. I live in spreadsheets and talking to people. So when it comes to graphically showing things, I really lean pretty heavily on these guys. So this is a beautiful heat map and some graphs that shows the population that I work with, our reserve population. So this is an example of something that you could find. You can zoom in to see some of those smaller counties as well. And the nice thing about the heat map is you can actually hover over it and it'll tell you the exact data and information for your particular county. Scooching over, these are the veteran ones. So as you can see, this is a much larger population just because it spans for a longer period of time. You can break things down by age group, by gender, that sort of thing. So super useful. One of the things that we always talk about in terms of our work out to the community is to be aware of the differential between the suicide rates of our military connected population versus general population. So this is a little bit older graph. We actually have more updated data. Since 2020, the suicide rate has actually gone down a smidge, which is awesome. But overwhelmingly, the military connected population are going to have higher completed suicide rates. And that is because of the lethal means that they choose. Overwhelmingly, they will choose firearms, which is why lethal means is such a major push for a lot of our organizations and something that we have put a lot of time and effort into. Okay, so that is the data that you can find on measuring communities. Here's another great place you can go to, and this is the VA, the Department of Veteran Affairs Open Data Portal. This will give you your veteran breakdown. Now, if we're looking for those who are currently serving, that's here. That's with Military One Source. They are always going to be about 2 years behind. That is the one caveat with their data source. There's actually a very practical reason for this, and that is because for OPSEC purposes, operational security, we don't want to necessarily have very, very current data out about our currently serving members. But this is still pretty useful as far as that goes. The RAND Corporation, this is where you can go for some cool research. They have loads of money that they use for research and reports, which they then offer for free on their website, which is really nice. If you have any sort of thing that you want to know about, there's a chance that they've done some sort of research on it. I actually went on there last week preparing for this presentation, and they do have specific stuff about rural populations as well. So if you're not already on here, you can go on there not only to research about the military connected population, but also for the rural population as well. All right, so my favorite thing to get out
Sylvia,
of presentation.
hey Sylvia, hey, I apologize, number one, for being late. I got a new computer and it would not let me get on Zoom, so I'm on my
Oh,
phone. I apologize. I do want to mention one more thing about data. Especially since we're talking to the rural health, there is also a transparency portal on the Indiana Department of Veterans Affairs website. It has economic data, like economic impact of the veterans in your community, as well as how we are interacting with the veteran community. One of the foundations that I spoke with, Washington Foundation, Community Foundation, when I met with them last week, they were surprised to see that there's $4 million coming in economic impact to their communities just through their veterans. Both through VA compensation, VA home loans, health care, those type of things. So it really does show a great data to show that for you guys.
awesome. And Brad, do you actually want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah. So again, I apologize everybody for being late. My name is Brad Harper. I'm with the Department of Veterans Affairs, Indiana Department of Veterans Affairs. I am the Veteran Suicide Community Engagement and Prevention Director. So we're changing titles here, so that's kind of two titles in one. But basically, what I do is just help to connect veterans to more resources. Thanks. Happy to be here and happy to be a part of this.
Thanks, Brad. All right, so I will keep going and then we'll pop into our normal cadence. So I'll pass things over to Brad. But this is my slide and this is the action plan. So as I was saying, my favorite thing from presentations is to have a action item to walk away with. So if you're like me and you like that sort of thing, here is our action plan. So if you are interested as an organization to start asking the question for your target population, we will be with you every step of the way if you want us there. And that is made up of 4 pillars. So the first one being training. I'll go into more detail on these in further slides. So we have training. We're going to train you on military culture and suicide prevention. Connecting. So what do you do if somebody says yes? And how can your organization kind of bolster your own connections to the military connected population? Tracking. This is aggregate data for you guys. I am also a numbers person, so this is very interesting for me. And IDVA has been really instrumental in creating cool tracking processes for you. And then follow up, because we don't want you to just start this and then be left alone. We want to be with you the whole time. So yeah, so for training, I'm just going to hand this right over to Brad.
Yeah. So, yeah, okay, good. I'm off mute. Sorry.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Just
as
let me
far
know when
as
you want me to go to the next slide.
what's that?
Let me know when you want me to go to the next slide.
All right, perfect. So we're going to talk about three things with military culture. Okay. Three sources for these things are STAR Behavioral Health, uh, the Psych Armor, and SAMHSA. Go ahead, next slide, please. So STAR Behavioral Health is a great training portal. It's available in 24 states. Obviously, Indiana is one of them. It's got tiered training, and it's got community-based training here in Indiana. It is provided through Purdue University, and it is a wonderful, wonderful tool. Next slide.
It's free too. Just want to add that.
Oh yeah,
Most of these are free.
everything we talk about here is free. So, so Psych Armor is the second one. They do have free and paid courses. The paid are for your CEUs. However, if you email us here at Department of Veterans Affairs, we can get you a license for free for Psych Armor. You will need to say that you are part of the Community Challenge Team or the Governor's Challenge Team from Indiana. So really great videos that really dig into a lot of great categories: military culture, kids, obviously suicide prevention. There is, suicide has three things: prevention, intervention, and postvention. And then it just talks about how to, ingratiate those military members into your community. Next slide, please. Okay, so here's our training example. This is based off the Psych Armor's 15 things veterans want you to know. Go next slide. So if you look at these top 15 things, we're not going to go into all of them, but I want to start with number one, right? We are not all soldiers. I am a veteran of the United States Marine Corps. If you meet Marines, they're very happy to be Marines, right? But it doesn't just end with that, right? So the Army, they are soldiers, okay? The Navy has sailors. The Air Force has airmen and women. And the Marines have Marines, obviously. Now, also, the Army Reserves and the Army National Guard, they're also soldiers, all right? So that is, right there at the top, okay? The next thing that we always want to talk about is number 7. So I talk a lot with kids, give speeches to classes around Veterans Day and Memorial Day, and I always bring this up, right? So not everybody that is in military is, number one, is in a combat forward unit, meaning they're not supporting that that campaign. And so not everyone has pulled the trigger. Now, the worst thing to do is to ask a veteran if they have. And that's because if they ever did have to pull that trigger, it was the worst day of their life. I guarantee you. Okay. And that's just something that, especially I try to get that out there to the younger populations, because, they need to know that from the get-go. Next slide, please. Okay, yeah, let's talk about number 13. All right, our family served with us. I did not have a spouse while I was in the military. I figured if the Marine Corps wanted me to have a wife, they would have issued me one. And so I stayed single during that time. However, I'm the oldest of 5 boys. And, there wasn't a time that my mom was not very, very worried about what I was doing. As a matter of fact, one time I went 3 months without being able to contact her. And so, the family served with us. And so on Veterans Day, I always call each and every one of my family members to tell them thank you. because they did serve with us also. And I think, Sylvia, you had something you wanted to add about that, didn't you?
Yeah, so I've mentioned in the presentation that I was a dependent. One of the things, because my dad was active duty, is I did the moving every 2 years thing. And while that impacted me in the fact that to this day, if somebody asks me where I'm from, I still have a hard time answering that question. But with my mom, she had a hard time holding down a job. And at that time where there weren't virtual options, it was even more difficult. So it really impacts families in a way that you might not know if you haven't lived through it. Back to you, Brad.
Oh, okay. And so if you have any questions on these, please put them in the chat or contact us directly. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Sylvia. All right, next slide, please. All right, another great training place is SAMHSA. SAMHSA is the federal government's training on mental health, and lots of cultural competency there. And you've got toolkits, you've got stickers, you've got media packages, social media packets, all kinds of different things there through SAMHSA on ways to engage and help identify your military veteran community. Next page, please.
All right, I will take over from here. So I mentioned that there's 2 pillars to the training. The first one being the military culture. This next one is suicide prevention training. This list that you see here are all of the ones that are available. I did mention that all the previous trainings were free. Not all of these ones are. Now, that being said, a bunch of them are pretty easy to get a hold of and are free. So SAVE training is the first one, and that is offered through the VA through their suicide prevention team. And those are all free. They are about an hour long and applicable to every person who talks to another human. So I would recommend this training all day, every day. And the ones that are below, so like the safety planning, the lethal means reduction, those types of things are really great if you want to get a little more in depth in terms of suicide prevention training. And we've got connections to all of these. So if this is something you would like training on, please let us know, and we are more than happy to help out. All right, Brad, back over to you. Brad, if you're talking, you're on mute.
Yep, sure was. All right. So when we talk about connections, these are very important to veterans, right? So first off, in our community challenge, we have 3 priority groups. Priority group 1 is identifying veterans. Okay. And there's 2 primary places that when we identify veterans, that we want to connect them to. First, we want to connect them to their county veteran service officer with the Indiana Department of Veterans Affairs. Every county, all 92 counties, have a county veteran service officer that is there to help them with their benefits. Okay. Also, if they're in the National Guard, we want to connect them to the Soldier and Family Readiness Specialist. Okay. That's their equivalent of our county veteran service officer. They're helping them navigate their community because obviously every community is different. And so they know what's going on. But we also talk about connecting them, promoting connectedness is our priority group number 2, right? So how do we want to do that? We want to do that through getting them out of isolation and into, different things. Maybe it's a book club, maybe it's a, online gaming and which has a very popular Discord servers. If you're younger, sports clubs, having teams that are either coached by veterans or teams that are completely made up of veterans in the adult sports area. I know this has been very well done with the CCA here in Indianapolis, where they have that. But I know that there's lots of, hey, there's lots of softball teams around. There's lots of, volleyball teams and that kind of stuff. So even having a golf league that's just for veterans, those type of things. All right, next page. So All right. So yeah. So sorry, I'm looking at this on my phone, guys. I apologize again. So when we talk about organizations that are helping to promote that, right? You've got the community challenge. Okay, that is what we're talking about today. All of you are invited to join into that community challenge. And all that really is you saying, yes, we'll help you to identify veterans. And then we will help you guys to provide them the resources that they need. All right. And that's what we're talking about right here, right? And ask the question. There is an ask the question working group that meets is it semi-monthly? What is it? Twice?
Bi-monthly,
where we bring people together to talk about best ways to identify. There's also the JCFIs, the Joining Community Forces that are around the state. They also have a suicide prevention working group. Those meet on a regular basis also, and they're more community focused in that they're broken down by specific areas of the state. And then you also have stand downs, resource fairs. These are often put on by local service organizations or the VA, or anybody really can have a resource fair. I just was at one the other day that was put on by the local food pantry, and it was incredibly well attended. And so there's all kinds of ways to connect to the military veteran community. Next.
All right. Sorry, were you doing this one?
Nope.
Okay, cool. All right. So I mentioned data. So if you currently have a way to track your military connected community, we definitely don't want to change that. I know a lot of health systems use electronic data pools. And so if that works for you, awesome. If you don't have one, the Community Challenge and IDVA has a QR code. So if we can paint the picture for you, if you're working with an individual and you ask them, have your direct family member ever served in the military? And they say yes, then you can utilize this QR code, which can also be texted, which will then connect that individual to either their county veteran service officer if they identify as a veteran, or to their soldier and family readiness specialist, their SFRS, if they are within the Guard. The nice thing about this QR code, not only does it connect folks to their direct resources, it will also let them know when there are events or resources that are available that directly pertain to them and the area that they're in. Another benefit to the QR code is the aggregate data. So you could have, as an organization, your own specific QR code, and then you'd be able to track how many times that has been scanned. As an example, I know that Ivy Tech has a QR code, and I believe, and Brad, you please correct me if I'm wrong, they have different QR codes for the different campuses. So that way they're able to track who was scanned where.
That's correct.
So yeah, so that's a really good option for folks. Again, I stress that it's aggregate data, so we don't want to be handing out information that directly ties to a person, but aggregate data is still really useful in terms of applying for grants or knowing the effectiveness of a specific program. So
yeah,
there we go.
Yeah, with us, with our QR code, just one more note on that, Sylvia, we only ask for their first name, and that's optional. And then, we just want to find out when they served, where they served, and where they currently live. So, yep.
All right, so I mentioned that we had a follow-up. So this is with the Ask the Question working group. As Brad mentioned, these are bi-monthly meetings. We actually had our kind of inaugural community-based one yesterday. These are opportunities for organizations all across the state who are asking the question to chat, to share best practices, to address pain points, to receive additional training. And it all gets held over Microsoft Teams, so you don't need to worry about driving. Since it's statewide, we try to keep it as open as possible. And this is a great place to stay engaged with the Ask the Question, and to also have any questions answered as to what do I do once I start asking the question, who should be trained on my team? What other opportunities are there for my organization to be better connected with other military and veteran organizations, that sort of thing. That's exactly what we're here for. And anyone is invited to these. We do not have any preference. If you work with the community and you have an interest in engaging with specific populations, we would like to hear from you. And I believe, yep. So here's our contact information. If you know, I have 2 different email addresses, and that's because I have an Army one. It doesn't always love everyone contacting it. So I have a Gmail as well, which is easier to use for civilian organizations. There's Brad's. His email is not as temperamental as mine. So and now we're open for questions. So thank you so much, and we're ready to chat.
Well, thank you both so much for being here. It does look like we've got one Q&A that has come in. This person says, our program focuses on maternal and infant health needs. We do have participants and patients with TRICARE insurance, which is the only way we currently identify military. What's the best place for us to start to connect to your services?
Yeah, so definitely in terms of asking about military connection, I would put that question in with the demographics. And then when it comes to actual services, so if you have people who are in the National Guard, there's actually direct resources available for pregnant women and for kids. So if the people that you're working with aren't connected with those resources, we'd be more than happy to work with you to make sure that you as an organization are aware of what those are, who the direct points of contact are going to be, and so forth. Brad, do you want to talk about the veteran connection side of that?
Yeah, so TRICARE obviously is the the military's for retirees that they can use and active duty. However, by asking the question, they may be eligible for health care that they don't know about. And so that's why, we always say that you need to ask the question.
Okay. If anybody else has a question they'd like to ask, again, you can use the chat or Q&A function. You can also use the raise hand function if you'd like to ask your question verbally. I will go ahead and launch our one question poll very, very quick. But collecting data is very important for us to be able to continue to have these free flex funded lunch and learns. So we do appreciate you taking just a quick second and answer our question today. For me, it's been a lot of great information that I was not aware of. And I hope more people know about you guys and your program and why it's important to ask these questions than me. But I will also say, to your point about people saying, oh, well, we only have a certain percentage or we don't have that big of a veteran population. One thing that IRHA does is community health needs assessments. And we always try to address and pull data on the veteran populations in our rural communities under our under and un and underserved and at-risk population sections of those. So we see with pretty good regularity the sizable portion of veterans that are living in rural areas. So I'm glad that you guys are raising more awareness. We're trying to focus more on identifying these folks and connecting them with the kind of resources that are available to them. And I'm not
No.
seeing any more questions come in. If anybody wants to raise their hand, we can allow you to ask questions verbally. You can also use the chat or Q&A. We'll go ahead and leave it open for another minute. I think, Sylvia, you started to say something else, but I do just appreciate everybody's time today being with us.
I was just going to say thank you to, this is a newer group for Brad and I to talk with. And the rural communities are definitely a place that we feel like we need to have a better understanding of ourselves. Well, I guess I don't want to speak for you, Brad, But I know I definitely do. We have a lot of guardsmen and women who live in rural counties. And this is a great opportunity for me as well. So thank you so much.
No, we appreciate you guys being here. I'll go ahead and stop the recording for today.